Well, while folks are filling in, I can slowly start to introduce our program because we've got a lot to go through tonight, and we're so excited to have y'all. So good evening. My name is Mackenzie Drake, and I'm the Artist Development Coordinator for the South Carolina Arts Commission. Thank you again for joining us for our Artist Entrepreneur Incubator session of Art Amplified, Mastering Marketing and Digital Strategy. This program is presented in partnership with the South Carolina Small Business Development Centers and is the fourth program in our business development series. This program will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel for further reference, which we're really excited about. Whether this is your first Artist Entrepreneur Incubator program or you've been with us before, this program series is created to provide resources to help South Carolina artists level up their freelance businesses. As part of this program, we identified skilled instructors and presenters per topic that can help you grow and sustain your arts business and practice. You're welcome to register for as many programs as you'd like, as many times as you'd like. At the end of the program, you'll receive a feedback form that we ask you to fill out. Your feedback is incredibly valuable and helps us to ensure that we're building a robust program schedule that helps you all as artists. We do look at these, so please fill it out. And then completely optional, but I love to offer this. To get a sense of the Zoom room here, you're welcome to introduce yourself, what city or county you may be coming from, and your artistic discipline in our chat. You can share this with everyone or just with us as presenters. And as a Zoom webinar, we ask you to submit your questions through that Q&A feature. We'll have time for a couple questions near the end of the program. Now I'd love to introduce our presenters for today. Jim Johnson is a seasoned senior business consultant and food systems specialist at the South Carolina Small Business Development Centers, affiliated with the University of South Carolina in Columbia. With a robust entrepreneurial background, he brings expertise from owning and operating businesses across healthcare, hospitality, and property management sectors. Jim earned his bachelor's degree from the College of Charleston and holds an MBA from Claflin University. He is a graduate of the Clemson Palmetto Leaf Leadership Program and the South Carolina Economic Development Institute and holds certification as a global business professional. Jim's consulting focuses on food systems encompassing agribusiness, hospitality, and tourism, alongside interests in international trade, environmental sustainability, energy, property management, and business acquisitions. He has held significant leadership positions and roles in various community development and Chamber of Commerce boards, been honored with awards such as Business Person of the Year and SBDC State Star, and is an adjunct business instructor at Claflin. Diko Pekdemir-Lewis is an award-winning fashion designer and entrepreneur based in Columbia, South Carolina, and founder of Anton and Maxine. Born and raised in Germany, she trained in classic tailoring and dressmaking before earning a bachelor's degree in fashion design. This year in October, she celebrates 10 years as a founder, having built and sustained her brand through strategic growth and in-house production. Diko leads an artisan-made studio, blending creative vision with business discipline to create a craftsmanship-driven brand focused on quality, longevity, and intentional growth. And Sonny Sisan is a multidisciplinary artist in design, ceramics, and floristry. Both of his practices portray his love for slowing down to see the beauty in life. He has worked in ceramics since 2017 and in floral since 2020. His work today is a perfect balance of all things that he loves and that makes him and his work unique. Creating works both permanent and temporary for the sake of being intentional and beautiful. Sonny has two studios in Charleston, South Carolina, one for his events-based floristry work and the other for his personal creative work in ceramics, though he will often combine both practices. And this conversation tonight is moderated by SCAC Deputy Director C. Scott Fitz. C, I'll let you take it from here. C, you're on mute.
course I am. I'm very, very happy to be here and to lead this conversation with these incredible artists. And I will say they are artists and they're also former grantees of ours. And I've had the pleasure of working with both of them in different capacities, different grants and programs, many just over the years. A little bit about me, as Mackenzie mentioned, I am one of the deputy directors here. My background is in visual art. I'm a visual artist, curator, chef, and poet. And I kind of bring that sensibility to, I will bring that sensibility to this conversation with this group. And I want to kind of set up a little bit about why we are having this particular conversation with these two artists. As Mackenzie mentioned, Diko is a fashion designer. Sonny works in ceramics and is an incredible floral designer. They couldn't be, more disparate in their practice, but the thing that I want everyone to consider is, or think about while they are answering the questions during our time together, is the common thread is their approach to beauty. And and Diko, I've had this conversation with both Diko and Sonny together and then separately, but I want to say or invite you all to consider that beauty is not this superficial thing that people think of, but beauty is part of our everyday lives, and it makes life more sweet and enjoyable. And what I love about this concept is that, and these two artists that have embraced this in their practice, including how they market themselves, is that is their lens. It doesn't matter if Sonny is creating a hand-built vessel or if he's creating this beautiful cascade of these different exotic flowers. It doesn't matter whether Diko is cutting a pair of trousers or creating a weaving for which is something she's exploring. So I just want people to keep that in mind in the back of your head as you're listening to not just the questions, but how they are answering the questions. And this is what makes both of these artists successful at marketing, is that they're able to embrace their particular views of beauty and find a way to market themselves that sets them apart from any other florist, any other ceramic artist, any other designer. And with that, I will start with our first question. And our first question is going to be about the impact and unique value proposition. Now, I'm going to kind of ping pong between asking questions for both Diko and Sonny. And then Jim, I have a separate question for you. So that is our run of show. The first question I want to ask you, Sonny and Diko, is what does your work do in the world? Like, you create these beautiful things, you put it out there, and then what?
Should I start first? Ladies first.
Diko, you can start first.
So my work helps people to be seen, makes them confident and comfortable in their whole life, and also show their individuality, because it is not a mainstream label. It is something very unique, and that helps them to show who they are and express how they feel, and yeah, that they're unique and not just mainstream.
Sonny?
I'd say the underlying thing that goes with both my practices is that they are both for like celebratory moments in life. And it doesn't have to be like a big celebration or a small celebration. It's just kind of like creating these rituals in your life for them to be memorable. I feel like I started ceramics as a way to share like how I like to go about my day to day with the rituals that I have that kind of bring a sense of peace to my work day and just like my life. And then my floristry work is like such a big component of people's memories in the sense that I am there for their events. And both of my practices are very visual. And I feel like these are like objects, both permanent and not permanent, that help like preserve the memories of when you're using these objects. And so with them being beautiful and intentionally made, they just become these like big kind of like memorable moments in life. And it's nice to be a part of that with both my mediums.
So both of you kind of touched on this next two questions, but can Sonny, while we're with you, can you talk a little bit more about the impact of your work on the people that hold one of your, I'm looking to see whether or not I have one of your cups, but I don't, that impact of your work if they are enjoying a cup of tea out of one of your cups, or if they are fortunate enough to have one of your floral designs. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel like whenever I use my work, because I feel like the reflection of the way that I like to live about my life and the way that I make my work is just a true reflection on how like I hope other people were to experience my work. And so it like shows whenever I make my ceramics, or it shows whenever we do florals for events. And especially ceramics, I feel like I have a very like thoughtful and methodical kind of process how I go about my day. And just like there's so much chaos in the world, and there's like all these things you can do to kind of like settle your mind. And I feel like the foundation of my ceramics is to kind of create these like heirloom pieces that, you aren't afraid to pull out the cupboard because they're so nice, but you kind of like create this like fine ritual for you every day when you're drinking out of like a mug that I made that's like a little bit nicer than like a regular mug. And then you like sit down and then you have like these like everyday intentions. And then they become so repetitive that it feels so normal. But then when you sit back and think about it, you're having a nice little me time with like this really nice mug. And same with florals. I feel like my intentions there are they're both mediums are just like very celebratory. And I feel like we just in life with the chaos around us, we forget to celebrate not just the big moments, but the small moments. And I feel like my work is just like a very big visual reminder on that we need to like kind of find moments to celebrate every day. So we can kind of like make life a little bit more enjoyable. And I feel like my work is just to make life enjoyable.
Diko, what would you say the impact of your work is?
So mine, in by my designs, I put a lot of thoughts in it, and I think about the person who wears my clothes, when they put it on in the morning and they have a busy day, that it makes them feel elegant, dress well, and comfortable. That is three, because oftentimes they're comfortable clothing, but they not necessarily elegant. So I try always to combine, because it's just what you wear change your mood so much, and that is so important. And for example, I see that a lot when a customer comes in and they put on my garment, the feeling of the fabric makes them feel always so great, and they say, I feel so rich and so elegant, and it shifts their mood. And then also, because they feel that way and they're more confident in what they wear, they carry that, and then automatically they always tell me wherever they go, they get compliments, and people tell them, you look so great, what you're wearing. And I think that is so important, and to create pieces that last long, because I think over the past 20 years, fast fashion has kind of destroyed the mindset about well-made clothing. So my job is to let people know, yes, there is still well-made clothing, which is also not super expensive, which is still affordable, and you can buy a piece and really wear it over and over, and that is okay. And once you're done, you can give it further because it's well made and it looks also timeless. It's still modern but also timeless. So my thing is really sustainability, slow fashion, and a different mindset to clothing, that clothing is something you can collect and not necessarily just wear and then a couple of times later just put it in a trash or give it away. So that's I think the impact what I'm trying to give the world is clothing. Clothing can be, yeah, pieces you can collect and enjoy.
Okay. Sonny, if you were to give me one word about the intent of your work, what would that word be? And Diko, I'm going to ask you the same question. So you've got an advantage here. So you got a minute to think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, memorability is a big thing. Yeah, I
Okay.
feel like creating
Okay.
memories.
All right. Diko?
I'm debating between two words. I think happiness. Happiness. Yes, happiness, because I think I make people happy with my designs.
Okay. All right. Jim, I'm getting ready to ask you a question, but before I do, I just want to take one moment to for everyone that's attending to reflect on or to keep in mind what Diko and Sonny were talking about here is something that you can apply to your own practice as you are thinking about ways to market yourself or to set yourself apart from, the crowd or the masses. And that is your impact and your intent. Jim, I want to ask you, what is UVP, unique value proposition? What is that?
Sure. So unique value proposition is kind of an academic term, used in, business and business schools. So, it could seem a little, um, far away there, but basically a UVP, as they call it, is something that's used in planning. And when you really sit down and think about your business, the core of everything you do in marketing is usually centers around that unique value proposition, which is that element that distinguishes yourself from others, right? That's how you set yourself apart, a differentiation, whatever you want to call it. But everyone needs to have kind of a curated value proposition so that, business is all about folks coming to you, making a choice, wanting, your clothing because it, makes them feel happy, or wanting the ceramics because, it's seen as an heirloom or celebratory type of item that, they get. And in developing that UVP, you have to have some style. Everybody has to have some style that differentiates, which I think is a concept easily understood in the art world, because you all work within a medium. You may have a certain style that makes you slightly different than other folks. My mother-in-law was an artist. She painted in watercolor. That was her signature. That's what she became known for when she did that. And that's an aspect of her UVP. Another thing that was mentioned here in this conversation, which is extremely important, I think, especially in art, is the emotional value of the UVP that is transmitted through your art. It's very important. I mean, a lot of the terminology that was used by both Sonny and Diko, you heard them talk about, well, happiness. You heard them talking about celebration, memory, all these things that really evoke emotion. Super important. because people choose art because it makes them feel a way, right? Makes them feel a certain way. Most people do, I would assume. Some people have different reasons for doing it, but you have to, that's another thing to consider in your UVP, like which emotions do you want to get across, whether it's nostalgia, reflection, or, whatever else it might be. UVP also includes, your story and your background. A lot of people buy into your story, where you came from, what this art means in context to who you are, all important things to be able to get across to your target audience, which I think we'll talk a little bit more about later. And then, of course, there's positioning in your value proposition. It's like, where do you want your art position? Is this like a value item? I know Deco mentioned, a lot of the clothing today's fast clothing, I think might be the terms used, kind of throwaway. Whereas her clothing is something you can have for a long time, which is both sustainable, but also just something you can that really distinguishes it, from other well-made, something that you can hang on to and even maybe hand down in future years. Again, going with the heirloom concept that Sonny had. But really, that value proposition, you have to curate that and create it, and then build your business around that concept. And if it might evolve over time. It might change. It's just a matter of how your audience is reacting to things too, and your own personal goals.
A follow-up question. So based on what you just said, Jim, it sounds like are you saying that uh, this is a way that it impacts or supports the artist's work through sustainability? Like is that what we're getting at here in terms of um, UVP?
Well, in the context of UVP is finding buyers. It's a business term, so it's really thinking about who's your audience to purchase your item. If one of your goals is to make money off of selling your service or your art work. So it
Okay.
boils down to kind of curating what the buyer is interested in, and that's what you have to offer. But you have sometimes that UVP. There's different elements that I talked about that you're putting together to kind of land on what people really love and what gives them that emotion. In the end, art is about creating emotion, right? Or getting that feeling. So and you want that. And you want to be able to transmit it through your style, your art, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and in my mind, I imagine, whatever that feeling is, like if that feeling is happiness or, creating wonderful memories, that is something that I would want to have more than one time because it's a wonderful thing. And maybe that's where I'm thinking, and this is a good segue into audience, but if it's something that I want to have for a long time, then I would think as a buyer, I would want to find those outlets or those artists that supply that can help me kind of keep that feeling going. That's what I would think. But this is a good segue into the next question, which is about audiences. And Sonny, I'm going to start with you. Um, who is your identified or target audience, and what helped you find that audience?
I feel like my audience, whenever I was developing my work, I just kind of thought about how my work would fit with other people that have a similar mindset to me. When I was starting ceramics, I actually didn't have my audience set in mind. I feel like I started focusing more so on like why I liked my work and how I wanted my work to be seen, because I feel like sometimes when you get too caught up in like, who am I creating for? You could kind of like stray away from why you're creating your work in the first place. But I do think it's good to kind of assess both, because it's good to know like what is successful whenever you're creating your work for an audience and what isn't. because it can still be a reflection of you, but also a reflection of like a larger mass of people in the way that you want people to use your work. But I feel like with my work, because it's so personal to me, I feel like I've just stayed strong with making sure that it has my personality in it. And then once I like started evolving my work and selling, I feel like I started to understand that most of the people that was finding my work and liking my work were liking my work because I was making it. And so I feel like my audience were kind of just like versions of people that have interests as mine. And then so that helps me figure out like how I can like market to them. And so I feel like whenever I like think of my photography or my videos, I feel like it's just like really relatable. And so I'm kind of like thinking about how I'm making how I'm marketing to people like me, essentially. I know it's like more niche, but I feel like I've wanted to keep my work more niche versus a broader sense because then that again goes to, you changing your art a little bit.
Well, and to be clear, niche does not mean that you're limited at all. I mean, you
Hmm.
could have a niche audience that is huge.
Yeah, that is very true because there are so many different audiences out there. And I actually do think it's better to kind of like hone in on a specific audience that works well for you because then you're able to kind of like um, use all of your resources and time into working on and honing in your practice for that one audience because that one audience, is kind of a big audience for a maker and an artist.
Diko, thank you, Sonny. Diko, who is your identified audience?
So,
And how did you find it or identify them?
so my story is very similar to Sunny's. I also, so my background, my dad is a tailor, and I grew up with handmade clothing, and I always appreciate that I had pieces nobody else had and that they were well made. So when I moved here, I thought, okay, there must be people who enjoyed it as well. And without really deep diving, I started, and then during that time when I had people walk into my studio, I paid really close attention on who they are, what profession they have, what do they like, where do they go, and over the years, I I kind of figure out, okay, this is my particular audience, which in my case, it's creative people or people who work in a creative field, even if it's university professors, but again, it's a broad creative mindset. And then again, it's people who appreciate well-made, well-designed pieces that craftsmanship, they enjoy that. And then mine is also for men and women, and it's not age specific. My youngest customers, they're in their early 20s. My oldest, they're almost 90. It's just that people, they enjoy something lasting, something well made. Those are my audience. And I had this Saturday, I had this one lady, I was closing my studio, and she walked in and she said, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate your work, how beautiful they are. I was walking by and looked in the window, and I had to stop by back and tell you that. And she got my information and said, yeah, she will be coming back. And she was also, she said, I love the beauty of it and the craftsmanship. And those are my people. So yeah, people who enjoy just well-made, beautiful pieces.
Thank you, Diko. Jim, when you work with artists, entrepreneurs, what questions do you ask them to help them identify their audience?
Yeah, a couple things that Sonny and Diko mentioned obviously are resounding, but the some questions and going to Sonny's what Sonny was saying is like, what are your values? What are the values of the audience that you're looking for? Um, because you have an art and you're looking for, people with similar values, and they're going to be your people, like Diko says. Really, that's what you're trying to find, your people, right? So, in asking questions to folks, you know, you want to understand the value proposition and the values that they're bringing, and also uh, how people might feel emotionally connected to the work. Because again, I keep going back to that because it's extremely important, I think, in art and in business a lot. I mean, it goes for cars, just as well as art. Sometimes how it makes you feel, right? Um, and understand, what's the triggers of your target audience. What are they interested in? What makes them happy? Um, what type of aesthetics do they like? And how does it make them feel to have an heirloom or creating memories and things like that with ceramics? So I think that's important, and to try to understand that. Also, more functional questions as to, what is the art trying to fulfill in, the target customer, and what experience are they looking for? Trying to, figure out and nail down these questions. There's also questions around, so a lot of those are like kind of psychographic and type of questions. There's questions of geography with your target audience too. It's like, are you selling your products online? So where is your audience, right? Are they national, international? Are they just, in your region or in your city? Are you just going to market locally, to sell your items? So where are the people? And then, there's other questions of your target audience demographically. Are you looking for people who have discretionary income? Or is this something more affordable or accessible to a lot of people? Going back to the niche, not everybody is your customer. And, what does that customer look like? How much, where you position with your pricing too? And then, that's going to limit your target audience too, as to, how people can pay for that, and who can afford it, and the type of people that might be able to afford it. So those are probably a few questions that we talk about, channels of distribution, how you sell it, as to how you get to your target audience as well is important.
Thank you, Jim. Um, I love the way this conversation is going. One answer just kind of leads me to my next question. So now we're going to talk a little bit more about marketing, specifically non-digital, active, and passive. So I'll start with Diko right now. How do you think about or approach sharing your work to grow your business?
So with the non-digital, you said, no? Did I understand that
Yes,
right?
we're non-digital.
Yeah.
We'll start with non-digital first.
So I'm luckily I can say I have a brick and mortar, which helps me a lot in the non-digital work because I have my pieces displayed, and as of right now, I have a storefront. So when people walk by, they see my garments and then they come in. And then also I work with two consignment stores, and which also helps me a lot. And for example, one of them, they are across the street, not far from me, and it is actually not a bad thing. It actually helps me because when he does not have a piece, he says, "Oh, the designer is across the street." And he sends me a lot of customers, which help me grow so much. So I definitely say partnering with other boutiques in my case, then collaboration with photographers and models that also helps me a lot with finding a new audience and promoting my work. Then I luckily have customers who try to help support me and organize pop-ups and invite their friends and colleagues. So a lot is community. I think my business in non-digital work grows through community, and that's been now for 9 years, and it continues that way. And I think because of I'm out there and showing the face of my brand, I'm making it, it has a connection to the customer as well. And they proudly can say then, oh, I bought this from a designer. She actually makes them. So that is really, I would say, as an artist, be out there and connect. Connection is so important.
And then I'm going to stay with you for a minute here, Diko. And then in terms of active marketing, what's your approach there with active marketing?
So active, I host fashion shows where I directly invite my customers. I participate in local fashion shows and also, for example, New York. And then I think through consistency, for example, the logo, the style. Um, I think I have a unique style. People tell me when they run into other person, they're like, "Oh, is that something Diko designed?" So it's that recognition through consistency and have your unique style that makes that is also marketing. And then what else? Yeah, and yeah, markets and being there every day and run my business and be open for public. I think that is very important and helps with the marketing.
Yeah. I would probably add something that maybe a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think of as active marketing, but I'm wondering whether or not this would fall into that. Anytime, I've seen the different types of photo shoots that you do that are in these public spaces. Sometimes they're not in a studio. They're not like a lot of times when people think of a fashion shoot, they think of, oh, this photographer and all the fans are going and the fabric is blowing and they're like, turn this way, turn this way. But the thing that I remember about your fashion shoots that when I've seen them is they might be on the Capitol steps, or they may be in a very public forum that is unexpected. So to me, that is a different way of active marketing. What do you think about that?
Yes, you're so right. And you just mentioned that. That is so true, especially the State House. I've done a lot of shoots there. And when people see 20 super looking people dressed amazingly, they stop and they say, who is that? What are you guys doing? And so I give them my business card. And that is also because I'm not, like you said, in my studio, I'm out there. Um, I people see me, and that is also a way of marketing. So I think the whole thing is be seen as a creative, as an artist, as a business owner. You have to be out there. People have to see. And also myself, I always wear my own clothes. So when I go places, I when people ask me, what are you wearing? And then I say, I'm wearing my brand. And then I give them a small intro and my business card. So that helps me a lot with the marketing, like being my own model, if I can say it that way.
Yeah, great. Sonny, I'm going to go to you next and talk about first. I want you to talk about non-digital active marketing, or yes, let's talk about that first.
Okay. I feel like so I have, two separate works, and when it broken down, one business is a service and one is a product. And I feel like Diko touched on this, which I use a lot, is just exposure is something that is big in community experiences. And I feel like marketing can be a good bit of it is we think of it being digital, but I feel like it's even more impressive when it's not digital. And with my work being on the floral side, because it's a service, you are kind of like sometimes it can get, you need to just like work with clients and it can be a client-based business. But whenever we have like community events or public events and our work is at like a big party or something for the city, we've done parties at the Gilliard, not the Gilliard, we've done parties at the Gibbs, which is a big art museum in town. And those are public events, and word of mouth spreads really fast because community events, I feel like everyone's always there. And then making that lasting impression is very important. I feel like when you're tying your brand to the visual cues of your work, people are always like, oh, I went to this party. The florals were so beautiful. Oh yeah, and I met the florist, and you like remember all these touch points. And that goes back to why like making your work memorable is important too, because that trickles into like how you market your work. And through that experience, I feel like that's always my biggest non-digital marketing is whenever my work's in the public realm. With ceramics too, like I've done a lot of participated in shows. I feel like you kind of need to just like curate your own tree of marketing in the sense that like, you have to have these different avenues and you just have to push yourself to do these different things that maybe are out of your comfort zone. And so like I sometimes like these events come in and then I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this, but then I'll do it anyway because then I'll get that event done and then I feel very grateful that I got a lot of exposure. And so same with art shows. Sometimes I'll like not have the capacity to fit in an art show, but then whenever I gotten the work done and my ceramics were in an art show and then people saw my work, that exposure is all kind of like that in-person marketing that's not digital.
So talk a little bit about passive marketing.
Mhm. Um, I feel like going back to your kind of tree of marketing, having different avenues of marketing, something that's helped my work a lot is whenever I started both of my brands, just everything I do is always with intention, even if it's, when it's creating my work, but also work for me. And it was very important for me to spend time to get my branding correct. And at the beginning, when I started ceramics was my first business. I kind of just did it on my own because I didn't have money to afford marketing materials. I didn't have money to hire a graphic designer, so I just did it myself. But I just wanted it to be well done, so I spent a lot of time crafting my logo, crafting my website, working with photographer friends who just wanted to do some cool photo shoots. Some of them I paid for, some of them were just fun collaborations. And so I'd say I spent kind of like almost half a year, not even working on stuff, but working on the digital aspects of my work because it's really important and it comes back to your work later. Because again, passive marketing, my website is always where people see my work. And so it's important for me to have that foundation for my work be very strong. And so when I launched my work, having my website be exactly how I wanted it to be, very presentable, it's stayed that way since. And as I'm like working on the outside, like doing markets, like talking to people about my work, doing community events, my website is in the background. That is like what people go to when they're on my Instagram or when they're on my TikTok. They're there and then they see the website. It's always this kind of like way for people to see everything about you. And so you just want to make sure that that's like the most authentically you thing, and you want to spend a lot of time doing that. And I feel like websites are very powerful for that purpose.
Before I ask this question of Jim, Sonny, the last time that I saw you, you gave me a book of matches
Mhm,
that it just had your brand on it.
mhm,
And that to me is a perfect example. I don't know when I'll see you again, but I will say that anytime that I use those matches to light a candle or a stick of incense, I think about you and I think about the work that you create. So I would want everyone here as they're listening to how both you and Diko talk about your particular ways of branding active and passive, to consider that it may not be the usual thing. It may be that what you land on, what helps you is figuring out what you can create that will resonate with people, even if they don't see you, even if they're not at your website or they don't see you in your garment or someone else wearing your garment. But what is that thing, or what is that one thing that could be left somewhere and someone picks it up and like, oh, what is this? And they see this name, you're like, I don't know, what is this weird, interesting, like Anton, and is this a V? What is that logo? What does that even mean? And then they're curious, and then they find out. But whatever it is, they are taking a little bit of what you do with them.
Mhm.
So that's something I want
I
people to
feel like
consider.
print can be like a good way for it to be passive too. And yeah, those matches were a pretty good like investment I recently did, and I only bought like 1,000 of them, but and I don't want to sell them, but I've been just passing them out or leaving them in spaces. Like I'll go to a coffee shop and I'll just leave a couple on a table before I leave, and people pick them up, and people are like, "Oh, what's this? Let me look up this person." And so
Yep,
I feel like,
exactly.
adding to your many different ways you can market yourself is a good way to think.
Yeah, definitely. Uh, Jim, can you talk to us about some of the touch points regarding active marketing? What are some of the successful strategies artist entrepreneurs use to meet their target audience?
Well, they did a great job of covering several um, of those strategies. And so I'll just hit on a few. Maybe they didn't cover as much, or I just want to stress more. In the end, it's about awareness. People have to know about you and your product and or your service before they can even engage. So the fact that somebody picked up that little book of matches, that just made them aware. I was like, "Who's this?" That's kind of intriguing, right? Led you down a rabbit hole to find Sonny's business. That's really cool. Got to be creative. That's definitely a creative type of avenue. I think you just always have to be thinking, because there's a couple different types of promotions. There's paid promotion, and then there's kind of like bootstrapping promotion, which, in the end can sometimes be more effective, I think, than paid. But sometimes you got to do a combination of both, whether it's, buying some promotional materials with your name on it, or, running some ads, or, just buying some signage, or what it might be. I think you always need to do kind of a variety of those things to be most effective. And also, you need to get into a variety of spaces to get your name out there, wherever your person is, right? You got to figure out where are your people, and that's where you try to get your advertising and your promotional materials. One other thing that was alluded to is this relationship development, networking. Um, Honestly, the best way to get business, and y'all know that this is through affiliation. It's like people refer, folks to you. So, coming up with, ideas and methods, to get folks referred to you. I mean, the easiest way is for people to see your product and like it on somebody else, right? So, and then there's that and affiliation. I know uh, Diko talked about collaboration, with other folks, and either them wearing your stuff or using your stuff or having your stuff in their space. And people can walk in and look at it, maybe has your name on it or a tag or a card with it. All important. But that networking piece and that affiliation piece of relationship development is critically important to any business, because we're all people and it's a people business. And that can just always support, what you're doing. And one other touch point, I usually like to talk about is in addition to what everybody here has said, and how they, try to market to folks, is just that active post-purchase follow-up. That is huge, because you you're selling quality goods, but to sustain a business, people have to keep buying from you, right? And going back to that relationship piece that I just talked about, when someone buys from you, you know, you can, follow up with a call, follow up with a note that goes to them, follow up in multiple methods, whether it's email, phone call, letter in the mail, whatever, and touch them, periodically throughout time to keep touch with them and whatnot. Because you want that relationship just not for them to maybe come back and purchase more from you, but for them to also have that feeling that you are a customer, you mean a lot to them. There's that emotional connection again, and they tell their friends too. This person's great. Not only do they buy the product, but they care enough about me to like follow up and talk to me, and that just makes repeat business and loyalty, which is critically important in any business, especially where you need repeat customers to come back and buy and more referrals. Those are lessons you can take from referral type businesses. I think those are two important touch points, and I think a lot was already brought up that was really good.
Thank you, Jim. Diko, I'm going to start with you. We're moving into talk a little bit about digital. Word has come up a few times, but specifically, Diko, what I want to ask you is, what is your digital strategy? Like, I know that you recognize and you understand the importance of it, but talk a little bit about what it means for the sustainability and the success of your business. How are you leveraging? How'd you come up with your strategy, and how are you leveraging that in both active and passive ways?
So I've learned that the marketing before I put anything out there, beginning of the year or the end of the previous year, I sit down and break down my year in quarters and write down, okay, quarter one, what's happening? What is the big important events or happenings? And so I go to each quarter. And then once I have the first quarter, I break that quarter into 90 days. And then I go month by month. January is this, February is this, March is this. And then I plan around my events, or if I launch a new item around that. And that helps me to have a clear voice and people can follow. And and it doesn't look like a clutter of everything. It's you can follow, okay, Anton Maxine is doing this right now. And I think digital marketing, it's storytelling. So you connect and you tell a story. And people love stories. And especially um, when it's somebody they know or they have met or they feel connected to, then they like to listen to you too. And then my my job is then to translate what I'm doing in my business into the digital world. And I plan also photo shoots. I luckily I have also interns right now. I let them, for example, right now my theme is bring more out the craftsmanship. So consistently they running and record me when I'm sewing, and then we create the reels and we pay attention what is trending right now. But then I don't want to be trendy. I still want to have my voice of my brand. So how can we translate that into the voice of my brand? This is how I approach digital marketing. And what I love about digital marketing is it is for free. It costs you time, but it is not, you don't pay dollars. And that's what I love about it. It's there. And for anybody who's not using it for their benefit, especially as a brand, as a business, then I think it's wrong because you have a chance to put your work out there. And I use Instagram, I use TikTok and Facebook, and those are three different generations of people who are in the one or the other. And then also each one the theme is the same, but each one is a different approach to. You do Instagram different, TikTok, and also Facebook. But I would highly recommend everybody to use it. If all three is too much, then if you know who your target audience is and where they are mostly, then focus on that. But use it. If someone doesn't use it as a business owner, I think that's um, not taking the opportunity of an easy way to market your brand and put yourself out there.
Right. Sonny, can you talk a little bit about your digital strategy and what that means for your business and how you leverage that?
It's definitely evolved over time. And I feel like I'm always responding to kind of the digital landscape of social media. When I first started, going back to why like my web presence was so important, I spent a lot of time like getting material in the beginning. Photography is a big thing for me in my work because I want it to be portrayed in a very specific way. And so in the beginning, I made sure I scheduled some photo shoots with friends, or I invested in some photo shoots from other photographers that I really wanted to work with. And even up to this day, I just schedule in photo shoots, whether I just do them myself with my camera. They don't always have to be perfect, but it is nice working with a photographer because then you can take the stress from yourself doing it and letting someone else do it. And so today, I still even schedule photo shoots in the calendar with no reason really, but because I know that they're coming up, like I have one scheduled in February and I know it's coming up. So I'm like, okay, well, what I have going on, I'm going to prepare for it. And then all of a sudden you have your own library of content you can work with. And so it's good to always have stuff, videos and photos you can work with. And so in the beginning, I feel like we had a social climate that was more so about photography and photos. I feel like when Instagram was at its prime, it was about photos. And then adapting is very important because when TikTok came to the scene, uh, just being real and showing your day-to-day in videos became a big thing, and more so away from the coldness that photos can feel because it's very almost 2D, very one note. And so now I've adapted to that, and I still do a bit of both because feel like you can't really take away from the magic of photography because you can really capture a moment of something that you want to portray. And so today I use all the different social media avenues. And even when I'm not feeling like it, I will make myself just take videos of myself with my tripod. Sometimes I'll have my friends help me in the studio. And then in my phone, I just have the biggest collection of stuff. And I have a very organized Dropbox, which my friend helped me organize because sometimes I'm not the most organized. But I have a Dropbox of all of the photography content that we have and photos and videos. And then when I'm like not in the mood to do any more content taking, I'll look at my phone. I'm like, oh, I forgot I took these videos. And over the New Year's, I like didn't have a post. So I was like, okay, well, what can I use? And then I looked back at my phone and I had this collection of videos and I made a quick little reel. And then you never know like how big it can get because there was one time I woke up and I posted this reel and I was just like tired. I was like, I don't feel like doing this, but I'll do it. And the next day it got like 10,000 views and I was like, okay, well, I'm glad I posted it. And so I feel like just making time for digital marketing is very important, even if you're trying to balance your work and trying to do the digital side, which is also like a whole nother job. It's good to kind of keep reminding yourself and pushing yourself to use these platforms because they are there for you to really leverage your work and put your work out to more masses than just your local. Because I feel like it, especially if you're a product-based work and you want to reach out past local, going digital is what helped me kind of get my work more national whenever I launched my website to sell on my website. Just like it's so much easier for people to share photos of your work on Instagram or any social media platform. So digital is quite important.
Sonny, I'm going to stay with you for one more minute with a follow-up question because you touched on this when you where you're talking about your work, how your work presents, or how you use Instagram and those sorts of platforms. can you talk a little bit more about specifically how you, a little bit more about how you leverage your website? You touched on it a little bit. Wondered if you have anything else to add about your website, because I remember the development of that website and all of the iterations and all of the consideration, um, and Diko as well. Very, very, both of you were very intentional and careful about what was on the website. And so I'm asking you a follow-up question with that, Diko. I'll pivot to you in a minute. And part of this question that I'm asking you about your website is twofold. I also want you to say what is the most important thing for you to have on your website. Like, you can't have all the things because as you know, as you've said, you don't want things to be too cluttered. You have a particular aesthetic, and part of that aesthetic with both of you is a very kind of lean, clean, elegant way of presenting. There's no point in people looking at 12 different things in one screen, but it's more impactful if they are able to look at one beautiful thing, beautifully lit object, or floral design, or bit of clothing. So in Diko's case, so can you talk a little bit more about what is the most important thing for you to have on your website?
I think a landing page is very important. And I agree. I feel like whenever there's a lot to read, and there are a lot of pages and it's hard to navigate it, I feel like today people's attention spans are a lot shorter than they used to be. And so something eye-catching is really big when it comes to visual marketing. And so both of my websites, when you ever go on them, it's just like one big image or a cluster of images. And automatically that kind of sparks your interest, and you get this initial reaction or initial like impression, and just getting that little spark of like attention will further their like kind of time watch in their head, that they will devote more attention to your work. And so I feel like having a very quick and big impressive introduction is very important, because then that allows the viewer to dive deeper into your website. Because yes, I agree. I feel like, you can't have too much on a website, but I feel like this is where it's like a little different, because both of my works are so different. Again, one's a product and one's a service. My product-based, my ceramic website is a lot more cleaner because I'm just selling a product and it's my artwork. But my service-based website, we offer a very luxury, high-end like wedding service essentially for floristry. And there's just a lot of questions with that. And so whenever I went to develop my site for that one, I had people help me with copy. I spent a lot of time making sure that every answer or question I could think of was on my website. So then it alleviates also like email time too, because all the information's on my website. But again, it is very important to like focus on imagery, because people always look at images first and then they trickle down to words. And so whenever you're building your website, you just have to be intentional with like making sure it's balanced and you have both informative and beautiful things. I studied a lot of websites before I started my own. I like looked at brands that I looked up to, or I visited sites that impressed me, or I bookmarked images that I love that made grab my attention span, because I also have a short attention span sometimes. So taking all these like taking time to study other people's website is also important. Because then that helped me build mine. And it's also good to just have one. Going back to say why websites are important is because they're like a bigger, more developed version of your social media. And my website are linked on all of my social media platforms. And when people see my social media, which is easily accessible, they'll like click the link to my website if they want to know more, like if they want to book our service, if they want to buy ceramics, and it's all like tied together. And so it's important that it all like looks as like a reflection of you, and everything kind of is cohesive and looks good.
Diko, can you talk a little bit about your strategy and how you leverage your website to reflect your business strategy and the impact of your designs, as well as the most important thing for you to have on your website?
So the most important thing, I agree, is the landing page, because that is what, when somebody goes on my website, that's what they see. And I always try to have a beautiful picture which is shows the mood of Anton Maxine, and then people can scroll and go to the other pages in there. And I did the same before when I was creating my website. I I wrote down which designers I like, how do they show their garments, how do they break down their website, what do they have on there, what's important. So I break it up down like that. And on my website, I also offer made to order. And I think that because everything is made in my studio, I can offer that to my customers, that if they need the pair of pants shorter, and I will make them when they order, I can do that for them, so they don't have to go to a tailor shop and have it altered. So I try to show that on my website, and I also try to have like clear product images, which is also though very hard, because mine is mostly all black on black on black. So I always give my photographers a hard time, but I think we manage it by now. And then also it's the website is a consistency of your brand, your storytelling, your identity, and it has to reflect on your website. And yeah, I usually try to update it every couple months and see, okay, is there something I need to change? Is there a style I need to take off? But yeah, but for me is my in-person is works for me more than my website. So I'm more like a in-person business I figured out over the years. Yeah, but I try the best, like make sure my website shows who is it for. That's important. What do I sell? That's very important. And how to purchase it and how to connect with me. So the thing is, in the first 5 to 10 seconds, if you land on my website, you should know what I sell. If the person doesn't know, then I did something wrong.
Jim, this question is for you. How can artists use SEO, and you might want to say what that stands for, what that is, to drive their audience to their website?
Yeah, it's a very technical term. We're getting into industry jargon here. But I just checked out y'all's websites. They look great. And basically they just evoke just what you said. It's perfect. But people have to get to these websites, first of all. Something you call a marketing funnel. A lot of what we talked about today is kind of like the top of that funnel. You need awareness that draws people down to either like um, your store, physical store, or your online store, your digital presence, which is your website. And that's like that's your store, right? That's where you want people to come. That's where they can make transactions, learn more about you. And so what are, some tools to help you get people to that site, right? How do you draw people to that site, get their eyes on the site? One of those tools is SEO, which is search engine optimization. And everybody has their own personal search engine. The most popular one is Google. So when you enter Google and you type in, ceramics or, clothing, dresses, or whatever, you'll get returns on Google. And usually people, they're looking at the first pages and they might dig deeper. But your SEO is what's built into your website, which is what Google looks at, right? When it goes out and searches the web and reaches out for all this stuff, it's looking for stuff. So whenever you build your website, and they had some great people obviously that helped them with these websites. It's more than just putting the words up there. Like ceramics or clothing. That will do so much for SEO. The internet's looking more for like not just a term, but broader keywords. How you might have it in a sentence. Also, it's looking for maybe longer text of 100 to 300 words, or 150 to 300 words, where you have description and narratives, that talk about your product or your service. And the search engine is pulling from this stuff, and it's looking at legitimacy too, right? So just seeing one word, they see like a whole paragraph, and they see more of a description, and that's going to help lead people to you through your search engine optimization. This is stuff that's kind of like embedded in the kind of the background of your website. So your designer would do that, or if you're doing your own off-the-shelf design, you can do this. There's tools like in Wix and Shopify that allow you to do your SEO. Also, it doesn't really see images, so you actually have to put wording on images whenever you're creating your website. Another important factor in getting people to get to your website are inbound links. That's another form of SEO. It doesn't necessarily go to a search engine, but if somebody is on another site, an affiliate site of yours, maybe that has a piece and it links back to your website, then that's called an inbound link, and that's getting people back to your site. And of course, another thing on the top of the funnel, are all your social media channels, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. And then you have links back to your website on those channels and through your postings and the content that you're creating, all trying to get people back here because this is where they can make a transaction, get more information, convert, as they call it in the business, in the sales and marketing business. Uh, and one other thing I want to touch on about SEO is the digital space is evolving every day. And Sonny, I think, alluded to this because things are changing all the time. With SEOs, an algorithm for social media, and for search engines, and what they're looking for kind of changes every day. And so, like on social media, like Facebook shows your posts to people through an algorithm, and the content that you're posting and how you're doing that is going to determine if they're showing it to people, right? Same thing with search engines. They show it to people because of the rules that they created to show. And the other big change these days is with AI. So people are not going to Google as much anymore. They're just going to ChatGPT or maybe just an AI, whoever your AI, Grok assistant is, whatever it is. And they're just typing it in there, right? And so now you've got SEO for AI, which is kind of another element to introduce to the whole thing. Because people, they're asking questions to AI and they're getting answers, then looking for places, and AI is coming back, with results and sending people just like, a search engine is. So a lot to consider, a very technical aspect. Really helps to have somebody on your team that helps to design your website and kind of create this. And so you can get your most awareness possible. You're on mute, see?
Will I ever learn?
There you go.
Um, this last question is for Sonny and Diko before we look and see what questions we have in the chat. And this is knowing what you know now, and you both know quite a bit. If you could say one thing to artists who are trying to figure out marketing, what is the one thing you would say to them?
Don't be afraid to be vulnerable is a big thing for me. which goes into like don't be afraid to take risks to like feel like, you know, I'm gonna make a mistake, because that you limits yourself from just taking opportunities, limiting yourself to launching yourself, to putting yourself out there. And I feel like, it's hard. Um, I definitely had to learn this too because my third medium, which I don't make money off of, but it's my medium that helps feed my other two mediums, is dance. And I grew up dancing. And I feel like being a performer and maybe also just being a Virgo, I feel like I'm big on presentation. And my work, you can like see it in my work and my social media and just everything that I do. It's just like presented really well. And so sometimes I get very caught up in the presentation of things. But I feel like a big word of advice that I got whenever I started my work was that if you're gonna keep worrying about presenting, like the presentation of things, then you can kind of be your own limitation on you putting yourself out there. And so sometimes you have to get out of your head and just like be like, if you don't have those voices around you to help push you, then sometimes you need to be the one that pushes yourself to take those risks, to like, take chances, like go do that event, go put your work in an art show, go do this photography thing. I don't know. There's just so many different things that come across you whenever you're trying to grow your work, and just, take everything in and then just push yourself. I feel like is a big thing.
Um, Mackenzie is showing a couple of images of Sonny in his studio. Can we see the next image, Mackenzie? Some of the floral designs. Um, this is Diko with her entourage on the Capitol steps here in Columbia. Diko, what would be the one thing that you would share?
So I would like to share about social media, and what I want to say, don't measure your success by likes, because what I post every day. So my strategy is use it and post every day, show up every day so people see it. And I remember at the beginning I was like always thinking, oh, I have only this less amount of likes. People don't want to see that. They don't care of what I do. And then I realized I'm a very social, active person. When I go to events or I run into people, oh, I see you've been doing this and that. You're very active. You're doing. And then it clicked in my brain. I was like, so even if they don't like it, they see what you do and they remember. So don't get disencouraged by having less likes. Post, 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 because people watching you. Everybody's watching what everybody else is doing. And because we are also busy, they just scroll. They don't have that additional second to like it, but they know what you're doing. So that's why I always say use that time. Maybe use one day, sit down, schedule for the week your posts, and then have them automatically post because people are watching you. That's my advice. Use the platforms, they're out there, and don't get sad if you don't have likes, because the main important is show them that you're there, that you exist, and what you offer. Oh, yeah, that would be my advice.
Okay, thank you. Mackenzie, I know you've been keeping an eye on the chat. I'm wondering if you have any questions that we have for Diko or Sunny or Jim.
Yeah, so if anyone watching, if y'all have questions, you can use the Q&A or the chat. I'll watch out for those. Let me see here. There's a question. A question for Sunny and Diko. What specific types of content have you found performs best for you on social? Photo or video, text on screen, short or longer videos, including yourself in the content? A lot of different options. What do you think? We can
Uh,
start with Sunny. Yeah.
Videos have definitely helped me a lot lately. I feel like we are more, with the way that social media has evolved, we are more interested in just seeing what happens behind the scenes. I feel like people want to know like how something's made or like what did you do to think up this idea? Because I feel like our audiences today are getting more interested in something more real and more personal, and then that leads to the emotion of tying it to why your work is valuable. And so videos have definitely helped me. That's what spread the awareness of my work is through the videos. And I have like a routine in the way that I post my Instagram. I have like two pictures and then a video. I don't always use video because it is a lot of work, I will say, because you really have to dedicate time to do it. But also going back to, me being a presenter kind of thing, it doesn't have to be like I've definitely taught myself to just like capture moments when I can, and then later on you have something to work with, and it doesn't you don't think it's going to be perfect at that moment, but then it's better to just have a whole bunch of stuff you can use, and then later you can make it perfect. Um, text is Text is become kind of big for social media. I feel like the phone is so small. I feel like with attention spans getting lower, I feel like you just want to grab people's attention in a very unique way. And with the way that I market my work is I always like open up my like say my reels, my videos with like a big text that kind of describes like what this video is about to be, it's going to be about. And then immediately they quickly read that, oh, this little 10-second video is about this. I'm going to either scroll past or I'm going to pay attention. And so it's always about like what is kind of eye-catching at the moment. But yeah, videos have helped me kind of get my work out there.
I agree. Videos, and what I've noticed, a lot of people, and they tell me actually when I run into them, they're like, "Oh, I love watching your videos when you create," because I think nowadays a lot of people creating something got so lost because yeah, everything is digital and you just go and buy a piece of garment. I know nowadays they don't learn sewing, but showing pieces of me working that that people tell me that they love that a lot. So I would say for any artist, set the camera either behind you, but showing how you work, or if you have somebody who can record you during you paint or create um, any other type of art, have people record you and then chop that up in many pieces and you can reuse it so many times. And then also voiceover helps a lot too. People love to listen, and text is easy too because if you're in a public space, you're waiting by the doctor for your appointment, you cannot necessarily have the volume on, so then people can read what you're saying. So, but definitely videos. There, people love videos and put yourself in the video to show your face. That helps a lot.
I think in today's world, there's kind of like not a rebellion, but there's like why people are interested in either handmade work or work that is made by an artist is because there's a person behind it, and it's like the going against something being mass manufactured. And when you're able to tell the story and show that like especially like if I like made this cup and I have a video on it and someone purchased it, they have this whole video that references to the cup that they have, and it's like wow, you can see here that it's someone made it, and so it adds to the overall experience of why people buy your work, which is more multifaceted than trying to relate to something that's being mass manufactured.
And also, they have a connection
Mhm.
because they say, okay, this is the brand and this is the face for the brand. So you are a real person they can connect with. I think that's why videos are so important.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you both. And I just wanted to quickly confirm and clarify the text on the videos too are an example of closed captioning or open caption, I guess more closed captioning in this, which is an accessibility feature. So highly encourage folks to consider that when making videos. Um, we're nearing the end of our program today. I just wanted to thank you, Sonny, Diko, Jim, and C, for all being a part of this Artist Entrepreneur Incubator. You're receiving some love in the chat also for your cat, Sonny. I
Oh,
love it too. Sweet, sweet. Um, But thank you so much for taking your time. And I know this is also just a form of getting your work out there too. To help emphasize that, if you have your social media handles and you want to drop them in the chat, you're welcome to. I can also include it in a follow-up email. And for those on the call, we do have a feedback form. I'm dropping it in the chat. Hopefully it should open well. Google Forms gets to me sometimes. I'll also include this in a follow-up email too for y'all. This is our first time doing a panel conversation in a while for the Artist Entrepreneur Incubator, and we'd love to hear your thoughts about it. I think everyone's joining in. Yeah, see?
One other thing, just to let everyone know that this is being recorded and it will be on our YouTube page and also on the agency's page. I don't know what the turnaround time is. Mackenzie, you may know better than I.
Yeah, the turnaround is pretty fast, but I'll follow up with an email to everyone. And it shouldn't be too long, but we hope that you come back to this video and think about how else you can improve your marketing and digital strategy. I'll also make note that, this program is a part of our Artist Entrepreneur Incubator series. We have another program at the end of the month on taxes for artists. I'll be on January the 29th. The registration is on our page. We have one last program with the South Carolina Small Business Development Centers in April. And I feel like I'm forgetting the last one, but there's so many. You should sign up on our page if you're interested in any of our programs.
And last but not least, don't forget that we are your state's arts agency, which means what we do, you're not the people that necessarily do the thing. We are the people that give the money to the people so they can do the thing. So in other words, we have grants. There's a grant for that. If you need to rebuild your website, there's a grant for that. You need a slab roller, there's a grant for that. So if you have any questions about artists' grants and opportunities, Mackenzie is your person. You can also reach out to me as well.
Yes, I just put my email in the chat if anyone has any questions. And I did remember Artist Entrepreneur Incubator program. It's a marketing program. Daniel Callahan has one more session of staying authentic while marketing your work. That program is in March, and I would highly encourage y'all to sign up if you're interested in learning more about marketing strategy and asking yourself some of those really hard questions about what your work does for yourself. Again, thank you so much to everyone here. Please do fill out that feedback form. It'll come in an email again for you tomorrow. And if you do have any questions about our programs and grants, please let me know. But thank you, Sonny, Jim, Diko, C. Wow, I wrote so many notes.
Thank you so much. This was exciting. It was fun.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.